Morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining. My name is Andrew Ridgey. I am the Executive Director of the New York City Hospitality Alliance. We are a not-for-profit trade association that represents the restaurant and nightlife industry here in the 5 boroughs. And as you all know, our industry has been hit particularly hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we need to do everything as a city to support our beloved restaurants, bars, nightclubs, and ensure that they have the support they need so one day they can reopen and we can rebuild our economy and get back to doing what New York does so well, is cook great food, make great drinks, and create environment for people to come together, enjoy themselves, socialize, celebrate events, get together with colleagues, make business deals, go on first dates, and do everything that really makes our city the restaurant capital of the world and the city that never sleeps. But to do that, we need to have support from our federal, state, and of course, our city elected officials to enact policies that are going to help us during this really trying time. So we are very proud to be here to discuss a package of small business relief bills that'll do just that. Give our small business owners the types of relief that they need during this trying time. So a few of the bills we're going to discuss today. First is about capping third-party delivery fees, which you all know have been a huge challenge here in the city of New York and really across the country. Exorbitant fees some of these third parties are taking from restaurants range from 15 to 30%. It was a crisis before the crisis, and it's really even compounded in its challenge during this emergency. So that's Intro 1908B. We're also going to be discussing a bill eliminating and penalizing third-party delivery platforms for charging bogus fees for phone call orders that never actually occurred. Believe it or not, we need legislation to stop companies from charging fees that they shouldn't have been charging in the first place. And that is Intro 1898A. We're also going to discuss waiving sidewalk, café, consent franchise fees, which is critically important when we start to reopen. People are going to want to sit outside, and restaurants that have sidewalk cafes, if we can save those fees from them paying them, it's going to be very important. And then last, but certainly not least, is protecting small business owners from personal liability clauses in commercial leases, and also helping protect them from harassment. So I'm very proud to have an incredible lineup. I would like to just let everyone know the process. I'm going to be calling on our speakers. They'll each take a couple of minutes to give an overview of the situation as well as their particular bills. We have some really incredible small business owners that are going to speak as well. And then afterwards, we're going to go to a Q&A session. I ask everyone that's on the Zoom town hall just to raise their hand. There should be a function right at the bottom of your screen, and then we will call on you and I will unmute you and we can direct the questions to the appropriate people. So without further ado, I want to give an enormous thank you to our Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson, who has just been a tremendous leader here, helping work through these bills with different members. And, you know, we've spoken about these issues, and you all know how much he cares about the small businesses, and he has so many in his district. So I want to turn it over to you, Mr. Speaker. And again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. It's nice to see my colleagues, Carlina Rivera and Andy Cohen, as well as being with Gabriel and Melba and my good friend Rob Bookman. So I want to thank you all for joining us today for this important press conference to talk about what the council is going to be voting on today at our stated meeting. As you all know, this is an unprecedented time for our city. This COVID-19 crisis is unlike anything we've ever seen, and we're still in the middle of it. The loss of life has been staggering, and the city is still in mourning. But even in this dark time, we know that we must be laser focused on helping New York City emerge from this crisis. And one of the ways that we can do that is by protecting our small businesses, our restaurants, our bars, our cafes. Many of them were struggling before this crisis hit, but COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on them. And just a few weeks ago, I did a similar Zoom conference with a lot of small business owners, restaurant owners, and bar owners, and small retail owners. And I heard their stories. It was heartbreaking. I know Melba is going to talk, and I know Gabriel's going to speak. And Gabriel wrote a piece. He owns a lot of restaurants in my district in the West Village about how this has affected him and his employees, and how they've just been trying to get through these very painful 8 weeks that we've been under the last 2 months. And we know that as heartbreaking as this is, we have to do everything we can to ensure that these small businesses and industry-wide, we do not see these places going under. Our restaurants are a part of our identity as New Yorkers, and that is why I'm really proud today that we're voting on a package of bills that Andrew just outlined that will help restaurants and small businesses hopefully survive this crisis. One of the bills that was mentioned, Introduction 1932, came as a direct result of the meeting that we had with the Hospitality Alliance, where we heard from restaurant owners. And this bill will prevent commercial landlords from going after business owners' personal assets. This nightmare scenario keeps small business owners up at night, and I think Gabriel will talk about it. He wrote a piece about this on Eater. But imagine losing your business because of COVID through no fault of your own. Your business was fine, you were up, you had your employees, and then a tragedy like this happens, and potentially because you're not able to go to your business and operate in the way that you would think, a potential commercial landlord could go after all of your personal property, your life savings, your home, all of your assets. So I'm proud that we're passing this bill today. I'm not going to go into the other bills, they were mentioned, but I want to thank the council members that have worked on this package, council members Moya, Gjonaj, Rivera, Cohen, and Adams. And I'll close by saying, I know right now is an extremely hard time for our city, but I'm confident that we will get through this. I believe in New York City. I believe in New Yorkers. Look at the restaurant industry, one of the hardest hit sectors over the last 2 months. And if you look at what's happening in communities across the city, so many of these restaurants have still, even in the midst of this, been stepping up every single day to serve their communities and to try to help some of their former employees. We've heard stories of owners paying their employees out of their own pockets. We've heard stories of restaurants supplying food for first responders and essential workers and donating to food banks and local nonprofits. This is New York City. This is the resilience and the heart and the generosity of New Yorkers. And it's important for us to step up for them and to get through this together. And it's another reason why we have to come back even stronger when we get through this. So I want to thank the Hospitality Alliance for organizing this today. I look forward to passing these bills with my colleagues, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you, Andrew, for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just to add on that, you're so right. You know, the restaurant nightlife industry is critical to not only the economic footprint of the city of New York, but really our social fabric. And I don't see how the city of New York's economy fully recovers if our restaurant nightlife industry is not at the core of that recovery. So with that, I want to introduce my dear, dear friend, our president of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, Ms. Melba Wilson from the one and only Melba's Restaurant on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Hi, Melba. Oh, you're on mute. We got to.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you so very, very much to our council speaker, Corey Johnson. It is because of your dedication and your commitment to the New York City restaurants and bars and you understand us. You get that this is important to us. We want to thank you for fighting on our behalf and believing in us. The restaurant industry is an industry that gives to so many. We're at a time in our lives right now in this city where we need people to give to us, to understand what we do, why we do it, and to take care of us. You know, March 16th was a very, very tough day for me and so many other small businesses in this city. For me to have to furlough my employees because of no fault of their own, not knowing how they were going to feed their families when they fed so many people here in the city was devastating. Even today, I worry about my restaurant family. One of the things that I am excited about today is the fact that our delivery fees are being capped at 15%. So I want to thank you for your dedication in fighting for that. And also the transition fees. Delivery fees being 30% were killing this business. They were killing my business. They were killing so many small businesses. And when I look at the fact that they're being capped at 15% now, or hopefully they're going to be capped at 15%, that allows me to possibly not just feed my community, a community that I'm born in, that I'm raised in, and that I so dearly love, but to also hopefully bring back some of my employees. Me being a single mom, started from the bottom. Literally, I started out as a cashier in this industry. I got into this industry because of the passion and the love for what I do. But when you take away a restaurant from a community, you also tear down the fabric of that community. You're not just taking away a job from a restaurant or an employee, which you're taking jobs away from farmers, from different vendors, from chefs, and from vineyards. So I want to thank you so much for your dedication and for fighting to cap the delivery fees and the transmission fees of third parties. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Melba. Yes, the delivery cap bill is so critically important. It will cap the delivery fees at 5% if a company is transmitting the order, and then they can do an additional up to 15% if they have a person physically picking up the order from the restaurant and dropping it off. So this has been something that so many of you know has been so important for so long, and we're just so happy this is moving, and it could not have come at a better time. So next, I know there's some committee meetings, so I want to get to our friend Councilmember Cohen, who is the sponsor of the Sidewalk Cafe franchise fee bill, and I want to thank him for his leadership, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrew. I will be brief because my committee is just about ready to go, and we're going to pass this bill regarding the sidewalk cafe fees. At a time when so many of us are focused really on meeting the urgent needs of our constituents, I'm really proud of the council and my speaker for being forward thinking too about how what the city is going to look like on the other side of this as we try to chart a recovery. And this is really just a targeted piece of legislation that's going to really help an industry that is in desperate need. Many businesses, as you know, pay this fee out over the entire year. There's no revenue to pay that fee. And I also think it could play an important role in when we reopen restaurants. If restaurants' capacity is limited initially, having sidewalk cafe space could really make a difference in viability of a restaurant. So again, I'm very pleased that we were able to get this done, coming up with legislation that makes sense and that really addresses the targeted need has been a challenge, and I think this bill does that. So I'm very thankful to the staff, and again, I'm very thankful to my colleagues and my speaker for helping me get this done. And again, I apologize that I have to leave, but I'm going to go get the committee going. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. We greatly appreciate it. Like we said, all of these bills are so important.
Thanks, Andy. Make sure to vote yes.
I think I will. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you. So next up, Melba, like I said, is just, near and dear to my heart. She is one of those types of people that make our small business community so special. And the next speaker is someone just like Melba, that really creates these neighborhood businesses that make our neighborhoods just so incredible for people to live there, to people come and visit. And he just has restaurateur running through his blood. And if you talk to anyone who knows him, wow, Gabriel Stolman, he's a guy, he knows what he's doing. And he wrote this letter recently concerning what personal liability in leases means for him and his family. So I want to open up the floor to him, but I want to thank him for everything he's done for our community and really appreciate him being here. Mr. Stallman.
Speaker Johnson, thank you for having me here. Andrew, thank you for having me. To Melba, Robert, and Carlina, hey, how are you? Really simply and directly, I want to say, I want to reiterate what I put in my letter to you, Speaker John. The point of the letter that I wrote was me saying this bill that you authored is important to me. And this bill that you are sponsoring is important to me. And the core of my letter was saying, thank you for this. I need it. I support it. What else can I do to support it more? The reason why I need it so much is I think you've touched base on some very important and key things about myself, Melba, and all of the other restaurant and nightlife professionals that I know. We are resilient. New York is resilient. I got no problem with perseverance. I got no problem with the adversity that's in front of me. I'll take this adversity head on and I'll fight to come through on the other end of it. What I want is to make sure that if I'm not able to get through this and I cannot get my businesses reopened, that's okay. I'll take that on the chin. I'll rebuild and I'll pick myself. I mean, boxing is the perfect analogy for restaurants, right? I got into this business not thinking that I was never going to get hit. I imagined I was going to get hit. It's a matter, can I take the punch and can I keep going through it? And so this is another adversity that we're facing. And if I can't get reopened, that's fine. I'll pick myself up and I'll do this again. Or if I can get reopened, but we cannot sustain for any number of meaningful and legitimate reasons that we cannot sustain, because we have regulations on our seating capacity, we cannot sustain, because of the cost of operations, we cannot sustain, because diners are still concerned about going into small restaurants and their own fear, even after we reopen, keeps them away, and we cannot sustain. If any one of these reasons I get open and I can't survive, that's okay. I want the opportunity and the ability to give it a shot, try to get through this adversity, fight for my business, for myself. But what I need to know is that if I give it a shot and if we can't make it, my landlord can't waive a contract that I signed 10 or 11 years ago in my face and say, well, guess what, Gabe? After I'm done cleaning your bank account of your business out, I'm not done there. I'm coming for your home and I'm coming for your personal bank account. Like Melba, I have children. I live in the West Village where my restaurants are. I've got 2 kids that go to PS3. I live and represent this community. I raise funds for the park. Give me the life that if I fail, I can at least get back up and rebuild again. If it's not enough anxiety that everyone in the globe is facing about how we've all been flatlined and leveled, let that be enough. Don't let me also live with an added fear that losing my business isn't sufficient. I might also lose my personal bank account. That's just like, it's literally inhumane. And I think that these clauses were bullish in the beginning, but I think to potentially threaten or wave them at us now is absolutely ludicrous. And I'm not speaking about this hypothetically, which are other points that I addressed in my letter. I literally had a landlord send me a bill for a rent increase to begin on June 1st. I mean, it's actually unconscionable. So, you know, to me, Bill 1932 is a step in the right direction. And I'm going to close with this. I don't think 1932 solves all of our problems. They're steps in the right direction. And we're going to need a lot more steps. I think we have solutions out there that are short-term improvements to what is going to be a problem for the next 12 to 18 months. And if we have leaders like you, Speaker Johnson, and the rest of City Council on our side and that believe and want to listen to our challenges. And if we have people like you, Mr. Ricci, we will all get through this. So thank you. I'm with you. Let me know how I can support this more.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So why don't we go to the sponsor of this bill, who has also been just an incredible leader for the small business community. She knows this stuff inside out. She has amazing restaurants and bars in her district. Council Member Carlina Rivera.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for what you said, Gabriel, from celebrating my husband's birthday at Simon and the Whale. And to Melba, the first time I had the strawberry butter on the waffle, I'm not kidding. It was like one of the best experiences I had because of the energy in your restaurants and how you become these lively local places in this very, very big city of almost 9 million, where there's still intimacy and you can still feel like this extended family. And I think that was so eloquent in both of your notes, and that what you want to do so badly besides getting back to work is bringing back your workers, because they are a part of your extended family too. So I want to thank, of course, Andrew and the New York City Hospitality Alliance and Rob Bookman, who's always there on the sidelines, like ready to go in, for their efforts to help get these bills across the finish line. With the federal government continuing to stall further relief for small businesses, it's imperative this city council acts through all measures possible to assist the longtime businesses that are an important part of the fabric of our neighborhoods. And I'm particularly proud that the council is going to be voting on my legislation today, as we mentioned, to prohibit the enforcement of personal liability provisions in commercial leases or rental agreements involving a COVID-19 impacted tenant. You know, we've all been facing our fair share of challenges, and what we want to do desperately is to make sure that we can take care of our families and that we can put food on the table in so many ways. And I'm glad that this bill would be one step. Again, it's not the end all and be all solution. This is one step on a path that I think every single elected leader, every single person who wants to be a leader in this city has to realize how important this industry is to our city and to our economy. So my bill is going to ensure that business owners, should they be forced to walk away or temporarily shutter their stores through no fault of their own, can do so without facing threats to their life savings and personal assets. Can you imagine that after all of this, after taking it on the chin, that you would be afraid of losing everything that you have, ensuring that one day they may be able to return and relaunch or create new thriving businesses in our neighborhoods. And they want to know that we have their back. And that's what Intro 1932 does. So sadly, I'm hearing from many small businesses in my district that some landlords, who I understand that they might be suffering as well, but they're still going after small business owners' life savings and personal assets during this national pandemic, and even trying to raise the rent, if you can imagine that. And what I know is that these businesses, they miss their employees, their extended family, their involvement in this ecosystem that includes stakeholders from farmers to truck drivers. They want to see our neighbors, and these businesses play a very critical role in keeping our blocks clean and making them feel safe, and really cultivating relationships that people remember for the rest of their lives. So any small business owner that's taking the right steps in incorporating their business should be protected by this bill. And I encourage all members of these committees to support Intro 1932, and let's pass it today at the stated meeting. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your leadership on this issue, and to everyone here who's making sure that when we reopen the city, we can do so with courage and compassion, and that we will say we were on the right side of history.
Thank you, Council Member. You know, what you said just resonates so much. People, it's a crisis, and it's tragic if people lose their businesses, but it would only be even that more tragic if they not only lose their business, but then they lose their personal assets by no fault of their own. So thank you for your leadership there. And next, I'm going to bring it over to a person who has been a warrior on behalf of the small business community, Council Member Mark Gjonaj, who we have had long discussions about how third-party delivery services, while some of them provide a great resource for our restaurants, many of them have been exploiting them, and he has been front and center, and like I said, an absolute warrior, and we are all very grateful. So Councilmember Gjonaj, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrew. And I can't help but mention Robert also. When we started this last year, at a time when very few were focused on third-party food order apps, we had the first hearing in the country. No one knew COVID-19 and this crisis and pandemic was going to affect the entire nation and the entire world for that matter. So it's now more important than ever that these bills that just passed my committee are important for these restaurants, for these small businesses. This isn't a question about thriving any longer. We need to create an environment where these businesses can just barely survive. And the commissions that were being paid were yielding a net loss on each and every sale and transaction. So I'm proud of the bills that were just passed out of my committee, including Councilwoman Rivera's bill. So 1898, 1908, 1914, and 1932, these bills go a long way. They're not the silver bullet. They're not going to end all of our problems and our concerns, but they are an immediate need and necessity for our small businesses so that they have a fighting chance. And I'm not sure if you mentioned this yet, Andrew, but I'm also concerned based on yesterday's news of the potential merger between Grubhub and Uber Eats. You know, the last time that there was a merger between Grubhub and Seamless, the Attorney General had made some concessions and requirements. I'm not sure if those concessions have been lived up to, but this is a concern. In essence, they're going to control about 80% of the market now with that merger, which is going to raise questions and concerns. We want to make sure that the customers, including our restaurants, all benefit from this, and there has to be a level playing field. So I'm not sure if that merger goes through, but certainly we're all keeping an eye on it and want to make sure that we do our part. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this historic day. And I'm looking forward to a more permanent solution in the future as these bills become negotiated, well-balanced, and permanent law in the future.
Thank you, Councilman. You know, you are right. We have been working on this issue for a long time. Before you hopped on, I said the third-party delivery system was a crisis before we are in this crisis. And now it's just unconscionable what some of these companies are doing. And we are very, very concerned by the market share Grubhub and Seamless currently has. And this merger obviously raises many of the red flags that you brought up. So I want to thank you for your leadership and continued leadership.
Andrew, I think it was one of your clients that had said it to me best. He said, without third-party food order apps, I'm instantly dead. With them, it's a slow death.
Yes.
We've come a long way to make sure they can survive. And congratulations to all those that have fought this battle. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
We just need a fair and equitable regulatory environment so our small business owners stand a chance. So finally, I want to introduce Councilmember Adams, another leader supporting our small businesses. Councilmember, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
Good morning to all of our friends at NYC Hospitality. Thank you for all you do. You know, it's been such an amazingly difficult time for our small businesses. You know, as Councilmember Gjonaj said, who would have ever thought, you know, a year ago, we would be in this place right now, literally holding up, you know, holding the arms of our small businesses to make sure that, I'm going to say not you survive, but we survive. This pandemic has been something that we never would have believed would have, number one, brought us here to this day, and number two, ever thought that we would take a look at literally and in the places to literally save each other's lives right now. You know, I serve a district in Queens, District 28. We have so many small businesses, so many mom and pop shops, so many barber shops and hair salons, restaurants, takeout spots, you name it. They're right here in Southeast Queens, residing where I reside. You know, and these businesses were struggling to make rent, struggling to be here long before the pandemic ever reared its horrible, horrible head. So here we are. I'm so grateful for the New York City Council, our leadership in Corey Johnson, and just the fact that all of us have hearts to protect our city, particularly protect our small businesses. So we are going to pass this package of legislation today. I do have a bill, it's 1914, and that bill actually makes threatening a commercial tenant based on their status as a COVID-19 impacted business or person, a form of harassment punishable by a civil penalty of $10,000 to $50,000. So, you know, and it's interesting because I've heard from some of my small businesses that they are actually undergoing this type of harassment already. And they have been undergoing this type of harassment in this era of COVID-19. So how timely you know, is this bill? How timely is this entire package of bill, you know, that will be passed today, you know, through the New York City Council? I'm just very proud to be a part of it, but very, very sad that we had to come to this place to make these bills, you know, not just a reality, but a necessity for all of our small businesses across the city. So thank you again for your advocacy. Thank you again for your leadership, and thank you for your partnership.
Thank you so much, Council Member. This bill is critically important. Businesses are in a crisis right now. We can't have them now being harassed. And before I introduce our last speaker and then we get to the Q&As, I just want to say I'm very fond of saying, don't talk about it, be about it. And right now the council is being about it. We are passing bills. We're not just saying we love our local restaurants. We need to support our mom and pop shops. We are taking action and passing bills that will fundamentally help them survive during this crisis. And I want to thank you for your leadership and need to finally introduce someone who is not only another incredible friend, incredible counsel, a co-founder and counsel to the New York City Hospitality Alliance, but someone who I spent much time in the trenches with and knows these issues inside out and has been an unrelenting advocate for our industry, our counsel, Rob Bookman. You have the virtual floor, my friend.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Those of you who know me know that I've been doing this and working with councils for 30 plus years now. It's hard to believe. And today's an historic day because, as Andrew just said, we've worked with many councils who've talked the talk about how important small businesses are. This council is walking the walk. I can't tell you how proud and grateful I am for the leadership, members Cohn, my brother, Member Gjonaj, my sister Rivera, Leader Moyer and Adams, and I'm particularly proud and grateful of our speaker, Corey Johnson, and my relationships with him over the years. He cared about small businesses when he was a member of the community board. Nothing has changed. He reaches out to us and says, what can we do? And then he gets it done. And that is so unusual in government, and that's why we are so thrilled that we hope these bills will be passed today. Briefly, to bring it home, then we can open up the questions. These bills fall into three very important categories. First, the legislation that will help keep restaurants offering home delivery of food at a time when it is needed most. Without these bills, it's simply not affordable any longer to deliver food while mega companies who do little more than transmit orders are profiteering from this crisis. These bills will cap transmission fees to 5% of the order. If they are then also doing the delivery, which many companies do not do, many restaurants do their own delivery, then they can charge an additional up to 15% for the delivery, which is fair because we didn't want to hurt any delivery workers during this crisis either. The legislation will also make it illegal with up to a $500 fine for those companies who charge restaurants bogus fees for phone calls that do not result in an order. All too often, a consumer calls a restaurant just to find out some menu prices, and they get charged for an order That's illegal, and now the city is the first in the country to pass a law which will fine them for doing it. That's what put the burden on them to check their order's status, not on us to have to check it. Second category is thousands of small business owners are deciding right now if they should turn in their keys and permanently close their restaurants, not because they want to go out of business, but because of personal guarantees in their commercial leases, which put their homes and their life savings at risk because the government shut them down temporarily. These guarantees were never intended to cover situations like this, and it would be unconscionable to allow them to be enforced during this crisis. The legislation will allow business owners to sleep at night, and it'll keep thousands of more restaurants potentially open when this crisis ends. And the bill that will prohibit harassment as a result of all of this is extremely important as well. Finally, sidewalk cafe rents. The city is doing the right thing as landlord of its sidewalks by waiving the rent it charges to restaurants for sidewalk cafes, thousands of dollars a season. Sidewalk cafes we cannot use right now, and dollars we will not have when we can use them, hopefully later this season. The city will be setting an excellent example for landlords in this situation where they are a landlord and they're waiving their rent. So these three categories of bills are extraordinarily important. Some of them are just permanent, some of them just during the emergency. We are thrilled that the administration, to our knowledge, has been working with us, and we hope that the mayor, once these bills are passed today, will sign them quickly. We believe he will. And again, could not be prouder and more thankful for my good friend Corey Johnson for listening and immediately getting this done. Thank you so much, and I think we can open up the questions now.
Thank you, Rob. We actually were just joined by Council Member Moya, who is the sponsor of the third-party delivery cap bill. So I want to give Councilmember Moya a moment to speak, and then we will open it up for questions. Good to see you.
Well, hi, how are you, Andrew? How are you, Rob? Hi, everyone. Look, I just want to take this opportunity to really thank the Hospitality Alliance. I want to take this opportunity to thank the speaker, of course, our chair, Mark Gjonaj, and my colleagues. Today is a really important day where we're taking a really strong stance in support of our small business owners. The legislation that I've introduced, 1908, is really going to help protect our small mom and pop restaurants in communities all over the city, but in particular communities of color, in communities like mine, where we have a lot of immigrant owned restaurants here that have been suffering because of the astronomical cost of these third-party apps. Capping it at 15%, as Rob was saying, really was the way that we were going to be able to protect the delivery workers that were providing that service to our community, which is so vital. They really have been on the front lines of this from day one. And to me, we have to really stand up against these companies that have been fleecing our small mom and pop restaurants for so long. I think that when we saw the head of Grubhub, the CEO in the beginning, say, you know, he was going to sort of bypass the fees, and then they reversed on that, talked about how the restaurants were the lifeblood of the city. You know, they're sucking the blood and the life out of our small restaurants. And, you know, we have a word for those individuals, and those are called leeches. They have been preying on our small business owners, and it is time now that we come together, send a very strong message that we are here to back the small business owner who is suffering, and also to the workers that are out there. So I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing together. I think we're setting a great precedent right now, and it couldn't have been done without your support, and of course my colleagues, Chair Gjonaj, and our great speaker, Corey Johnson. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Like I said before, our hospitality industry truly is the backbone of our city, and we appreciate your leadership. And we know this is the beginning of restaurant relief legislation. We urge the council to pass it and the mayor to sign these bills into law so they take effect immediately. We cannot wait every moment that goes by becomes more and more challenging for our restaurant and nightlife operators around the city. So with that, I want to thank all of you, and I want to open it up for some questions. If you can just raise your hands if you have questions, and I will call on you in order. First, I'm going to go to Fernando Martinez, and if I don't know you, can you just introduce yourself with name and the publication or the outlet that you are with? Thank you. You should be unmuted now, Fernando. You may just need to unmute yourself.
Ok, ¿me escuchan?
Hello? Yeah.
Ok, mi pregunta va dirigida especialmente a los concejales hispanos que están en el panel. Es para los medios hispanos. Soy Fernando Martínez del Diario de Nueva York. Mi pregunta es, en resumen, ¿cómo ponderan ustedes que va a ser el principal beneficio, el principal impacto para los miles de trabajadores de restaurantes, cafés, bares, incluyendo los deliveries, que se considera que posiblemente sea más del 60% de la fuerza trabajadora en este tipo de pequeños negocios? ¿Cuál es la buena noticia para ellos el día de hoy?
Bueno, sí, yo puedo empezar, especialmente con la legislación que yo tengo, el 1908 que vamos a oír hoy día en el Stated Meeting, es porque lo que vemos especialmente en comunidades como la nuestra, que yo represento en Corona y en Elmhurst, que ha sido afectada, hemos visto que es el epicentro de esta pandemia. Lo que tenemos que hacer es proteger que compañías no empiecen a abusar la manera que ellos están cobrando a los restaurantes, pero también no queremos hacer algo que va a afectar negativamente a los trabajadores que están delivering la comida. Por eso hemos puesto esa registración, restriction del 15% para que eso no le afecte al trabajador que está ahí dando este servicio. Es sumamente importante porque ahora vemos que si no estamos haciendo esto, las compañías como Grubhub podían cobrar hasta el 30% por servicios que los restaurantes no estaban usando. También hay la legislación que tenemos ahí que no pueden cambiar el costo del menú porque si no la compañía les cobra más y les da una multa por eso. Hay bastantes cosas que estamos haciendo para proteger al pequeño negociante, pero también a los trabajadores en los restaurantes, porque todos son familia aquí, ¿no es cierto? Si está trabajando en la cocina, también es la persona que está llevando la comida a darle el servicio de delivery. Entonces, todo esto es para que nosotros podamos continuar en la economía del pequeño negocio que está ayudando a la ciudad de Nueva York ahora.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Next, Gloria, hello, from New York One. Gloria Pesmino.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing?
Morning.
I wanted to ask, this is sort of a broader industry question in terms of how you guys see the industry going forward beyond the bills that the City Council is passing today. And some of you have mentioned how they address problems that restaurants were facing before this crisis. But I wonder what you guys are thinking about the restaurant industry going forward. Clearly, with so much of our normal life possibly not coming back as quickly as everyone would like. So what is the restaurant industry thinking about the ways that they could bring parts of the industry back? And what do you need the city to do to step up and be able to accommodate some of those changes so that the industry can get back to work and in turn help the city's overall economy?
Thanks, Gloria. You know what? I'll take a jump at that, and then perhaps Melba or others want to jump in. But, you know, clearly these bills are very important right now, and we are going to need support from the federal government changing the Paycheck Protection Program. I won't get too much into that. Also, we'll clearly need support from the state, but something the city of New York can do, and I know the speaker and others have been supporters of this, is we need to reimagine how we are going to use public space. That means streets, pedestrian plazas, parks, sidewalks, to figure out if we can allow restaurants and bars to set up to serve food out there. Because if our restaurants have to open at a reduced occupancy inside, they could barely get by before the crisis. We are going to have to allow them to get some of those additional sales on the street. So if we're reduced by some capacity outside, how can we generate additional sales outside? I also think the dining public may be comfortable eating in open air spaces. We've seen cities around the globe, around the country, begun to do that. New York City should be a leader in this. And I know there are discussions happening, but outdoor space, let's reimagine it. And I also sense the dining public will really enjoy it. If we can do it in a safe way, a healthy way, and ensure that people can support small businesses and they can be out, it'll also bring a vibrancy and an excitement back to the city that we're desperately going to need to get back to a sense of a new normal. So I'd say outdoor space, and there's a list of other issues, but I'll leave it there. And if Melba or anyone wanted to chime in, they are welcome to do so.
Thank you.
Gloria, if it's okay with you, Andrew, I want to respond.
Sure, go ahead, Councilman.
One of the startling reports that I heard last week is a prediction that 25% of our restaurants and bars will not reopen after the crisis. That should be alarming to all of us. That's going to change the landscape of our commercial corridors, our neighborhoods, our communities. It's going to be a loss of revenue, tax base, and employment. We need to be more proactive in ensuring that these small businesses have a fighting chance to survive this. We need to give back to these small businesses to make sure that they can reopen and have a chance to get through this pandemic and crisis.
Thanks, Councilman. You know, the other thing that we will need, and again, we have a long list of reforms that need to come from every level of government, both for the immediate crisis, but then the mid and long-term recovery. And one of the things that has come up is reopening grants or low interest, long-term loans to reopen, because it's going to be like opening up a new restaurant. You're going to have to hire people back. You are going to have to purchase products. So it's going to be a combination of cash support, but then we are also, like I said, going to need a lot of different policies, from permitting and licensing to other matters as well. Let's move on to, we have, oh, Sam Luck, I'm unmuting you.
Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Sam.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Two questions, Andrew, one for you and then the other for Councilwoman Rivera. You were just talking about the kind of expansion of outdoor seating that we were seeing in other cities. Do you see 1916, the sidewalk cafe bill, as encouraging that, or is that strictly just about making it easier for businesses that already have these sidewalk permits to continue?
Well, I think
second question for the Councilwoman. You said that 1932, the bill is not the be all end all, but one step on a path for business relief. Do you see like a rent or utility or tax freeze being the next step on that path?
So I'll go and then we'll turn, Councilman, why don't you go, you answer your question and then I'll take the first question.
Okay, thanks for the question. Yes, I think this is one of many things that we need. We're seeing other bills that are coming from our elected official colleagues in Albany, and of course the federal government. I think that the Paycheck Protection Program has some issues and challenges, and it definitely needs to expand. I also am looking forward to hearing from the city, particularly the mayor's office and small business services, and hopefully what I think will be their own version of 2.0 on some of the grants and very, very low interest loans. I do hope they also look to how our community networks have really been building, and some of our local lenders actually got programs up and running by mid-March, and some of those loans, those low interest loans, processed within a week. So I think there are things hyper locally on the municipal level in Albany and of course in Washington that we can do for our small businesses. I think my bill is certainly is groundbreaking in that way, in that this is providing a sort of mental and emotional relief, but also financially should it come to it. And as for, if I can just comment on the open streets, I think that, and he'll speak on the bill for Councilmember Cohen, but we have a bill for open streets. And so even though we have not passed it, we had a hearing, it brought the mayor to the table to start this phased in approach to opening some of the streets in our city. And I think that right now it's to promote safe social distancing, making sure that our essential workers can commute safely and that people can take that walk around the block and don't fear the choke points at some of our park entrances, and hopefully extend some of our very narrow sidewalks. But I think long-term, we all know what this could be. This could be how those restaurants and those businesses are able to spill out onto the sidewalks and to the streets to be able to serve people in what we pretty much are sure will be a very limited occupancy.
Great, thank you. And so Sam, and to your question, this bill on the sidewalk cafes is separate, as it would basically waive the fees that restaurant owners are basically having to pay now or in the near future. So it is certainly a separate issue. It is very, very important for all of those restaurants around the city that have sidewalk cafes. But I guess it is in the theme of supporting businesses operating outdoors. So it's a separate issue, but part of the outdoor dining conversation.
And then Andrew, if I could just ask you a follow-up on that outdoor dining conversation, you said that there are discussions happening. Could you elaborate?
Yes, well, I mean, I think you've heard a lot of members speak publicly about it, as have I, about the need to use outdoor space. The speaker has been a big advocate for reimagining the streetscape. And this is something I know that is an issue that's been near and dear to his heart, I believe. And I know many other members, as recently as yesterday, was saying that they'd be interested in doing this in other districts. I'm a member of a community board, not speaking on behalf of the community board, but I know there's interest there. I've heard from some business improvement districts, other community boards. So people understand that our restaurant industry is the backbone of our communities, and they're going through a very challenging time. And if we can use outdoor space going into the spring and summer and even the fall, it will greatly help them generate some additional revenue that's desperately needed, while bringing some energy and excitement and vitality back to the city streets. I mean, look, I don't have to tell you, our city streets really are the heartbeat of New York. So, I think that there is support. We at the New York City Hospitality Alliance are very much part of the conversation. But most importantly, today, we need these bills passed, capping the fees, penalties for bogus telephone fees, waiving the sidewalk cafe franchise fees, stopping tenant harassment, and suspending the enforcement of personal liability provisions in leases. I mean, that's what the council is going to vote on today, and we urge the mayor to get them done, signed into law ASAP. All right, I see next, Andrea Grimes. Hi, Andrea. I am, gonna open you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, good morning. Andrea from Grimes from CBS. Thanks so much. I just had two questions. One for Melba. First of all, can you just generally talk about how difficult it's been for you over the last 2 months, just in general? And I was curious if you're doing takeout orders in your restaurant. And then second, for the councilwoman, some landlords might say, you kind of touched on it, that they're struggling as well, so they can help out restaurants and their tenants as much as possible, but it might get to the point where they go under too. What would you say to landlords who might also be struggling?
Hi, Andrea. Can you guys, hi, Andrea, it's Melba. So yeah, this has been one of the most difficult times, not just in my business, but in my life. Imagining saving up money literally under your mattress to invest and open up in a community that you're born in, that you're raised in, and that I'm raising my child in, a business that becomes somewhat successful. And I say successful because I'm able to take people from my community and employ them. So to me, that's a success within itself. To waking up one day and finding out that that business that you love, that's an extension of yourself, and your employees, which are become extended family members, that you now have to let them go. So difficult is an understatement. You know, I worry about my team. I think about them. I try to do whatever I can do personally to provide a comfortable space for them. However, not knowing how that's going to happen and when that's going to happen is disheartening. And, you know, when I think about the PPP program and how it was designed to provide funding for small businesses, and I hear that multi-million-dollar companies have gotten and received this money, when a disparaging amount of restaurants of color, 95% did not receive funding, is deafening to me. It's unimaginable, you know, when I hear things like that. This is a fund that was set up just for small businesses. And to hear that brown and Black people and yellow people in my community who saved up their hard-earned money so that they can start their businesses and employ people just as I have, did not get funding. You know, you've got to look at that and say, is this really what we're going through in 2020? And these are businesses that go out of their way to support. And even though times are rough, always find a way to give back to their communities. Something has to be done about that.
Thank you, Melba.
And then I want to make sure that I heard most of your question. Can you just repeat it? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sure. You could still hear me, right?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was just curious. Some landlords might say, you know, some of them obviously helping their tenants, others not as much. What would you say to landlords who are concerned, maybe that they'll go under at some point too, and they might need some help?
I would say that you know, this is an emergency unlike any we've ever seen, and no business owner could have realistically prepared for this kind of situation. And no matter the need, I mean, I do think it's a moral and an ethical failure for landlords to seek such restitution from people who have already lost their life's work. And we certainly think that any state or federal assistance for tenants should also include support for small and nonprofit landlords as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. All right. Do we have any other questions? It looks like we may have all of them. So I want to just do a big thank you to everyone today. As we said, you know, New York City's restaurant nightlife industry, we will come back, but it's going to take time, and we need to do everything we possibly can do to support our small businesses. And this legislation being voted on today does that. We're not talking about it, we're being about it. So a big thank you to the Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson. We have Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Gjonaj, Moya, Adams, Cohen, who joined us earlier. Of course, Melba Wilson, Gabe Stolman, and the one and only Robert Bookman. The New York City Hospitality Alliance is here fighting day in and day out on behalf of our hospitality industry. We urge all restaurant nightlife operators, reach out to us, get engaged. We need to stay united. We need to speak with one voice, because we will get through this. And as Melba had said when she was on 60 Minutes a few weeks ago, something that gives me the chills every time I think about it. She said her grandmother used to always tell her, honey, this too shall pass. And this too shall pass, but we need support until it does pass. So again, thank you, thank you. Please, I don't want to keep you longer. Go vote if you haven't. We're excited to celebrate later, and we look forward to your continued support and working together to bring back our industry and bring back our city and state. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. So long.